Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org.
Hey, you listen to conservative talk radio all week. Why don't you try something different for a change? The Majority Report with Sam Cedar is a 5-time award-winning daily left-wing political talk show. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. You can find it by searching for The Majority Report. We talk about the news, we take libertarian callers, we have debates, we interview guests on topics ranging from the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, child poverty, capitalism, the intellectual dark web, and more. And that's all just within the last month. If you want to hear what smart, progressive political talk that is occasionally amusing sounds like, then you need to tune in. And you're always welcome to call in if you want to hear the correct opinion on any given topic. I will give it to you. Tune into the Majority Report at 11 a.m. Central Time on YouTube or later wherever you get your podcasts.
WVNN. Depend on it. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The time has come for America to hear the truth.
We are going to stand with them, and not only are we going to fight for their rights, but we're going to stand up for our rights here in our state, in our homes, and in our community.
One day longer, one day stronger. One day longer, one day stronger.
Because the future of labor's rights in the United States of America is not going to be decided in the courts. It's not going to be decided in Congress. It's not going to be decided on talk radio, and it sure is not going to be decided on Fox News.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, David Story. It is Saturday, March 13th, 2021, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. A recording of this program will play tomorrow, Sunday, March 14th, 2021, on the great WGOL in Russellville, Alabama. Today, we are talking to President of the Nashville Labor Council, Vonda McDaniel, about her life in the labor movement and the push to put right to work for less in the Tennessee state constitution. We'll be taking calls and more on today's Valley Labor Report. So my announcement right up at the top. Don't forget, folks, the North Alabama DSA is holding a necessities drive this Saturday, today, and every Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. At the IBEW Local 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue, right across from Yellowhammer and Campus 805 in Huntsville. So if you're in the area, you want to drop off some clothes, some non-perishable food items, blankets, PPE, then make sure you swing by the IBEW Union Hall right across from Yellowhammer and Campus 805 from 3 to 5 p.m. this Saturday and every Saturday. All donations are forwarded to to the Manor House. So you know it's going to a good place. Local folks, everybody's familiar with the Manor House. They do excellent work. Good folks over there. So follow at DSA North Alabama on Twitter for more information. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip the show. We clip segments and release them throughout the week, so if you just want to see us talk about one topic, we've got a whole back catalog of stuff on YouTube. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps, so to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, you can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We've got a website now where you can buy our fantastic union-made hats. That is thevalleylaborreport.org. They're great. I love them. You should get one. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Oh, and one more thing about the hats. We've got them in now. We've been waiting for them to come in. We bought like 100 of them. So we've got them. David brought them today in his car. And so probably today I'll be for folks that order right now today or have already ordered, I'm probably going to try to go by the post office today and go ahead and get them out just because I know that there's a lot of folks that have been waiting a really long time. So we want to make sure that we get those out as soon as possible. So if you've ordered one before or you order one today, you can expect those in the mail pretty soon. So our guest today is Vonda McDaniel. She is the president of the Nashville Labor Council. She comes out of the Steel Workers, Local 1055. Vonda, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Good morning, David. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, David, if you could turn that up just to turn her up just a little bit more. I was having trouble hearing her. But what was that? Okay, so Vonda, like I said before we started the program, one of the things that I like to do anytime I get somebody on that is actually a union member that's been in the labor movement, I like to ask them what brought them to the what brought you to the labor movement? Did you always work in a union shop? Did you have you had family that's been in the labor movement? Like how did you come into the labor movement? What made you, want to spend your life kind of doing this work?
Well, so good morning, and thank you, David, and thank you, Jacob, for having me. What brought me into the labor movement, I hired in 1992 in the Bridgestone Firestone plant in Laverne. When I got there, I met a retired firefighter, Italian firefighter from New York, who was our department steward. He immediately decided, for whatever reasons, he saw something in me that I should be active in the union. And so that began my union journey. He worked with me and studying the contract and getting to know folks and helping to resolve grievances. And here I am almost 30 years later, still working with the union and now working with the Labor Council, which is the umbrella organization, kind of the federated organization for all the unions in my area.
Right. So what are some of the things that you've seen the union do for you in your life, or that you've seen the union do for other folks maybe in your workplace?
So coming out of the rubber industry, I've seen, strong safety enforcements. The rubber industry wasn't always the safest place to work. But over the years, because of the involvement of the union, I believe that having a good job in a union provides not only good wages, benefits, and working conditions, but also the ability to be able to go earn a living in a safe environment. So, yep.
Gotcha. Were your parents did you have family in the labor movement at all, or were you kind of?
So that's an interesting journey. I've kind of studied that over the years. My great grandfather worked for the old Ma Bell and was part of the Pioneers Union. I had an aunt that worked at the Anniston plant and was part of the union. But that wasn't something. My mother was a school teacher, so she was definitely a member of the Educators Union. But when I was growing up, teachers weren't as active as they are now in terms of their activism and militancy. But yeah, I grew up in a household with a union parent, and that's made the difference for me and my family.
Okay. That's really great. I don't have a history of kind of labor movement activism or even labor movement, participation at all in my family. I don't know anybody that was a member of the union in my family, but David's like right the opposite. He's a third or fourth generation union member. His grandmother was like president of the textile workers union here up in North Alabama. So, we come to it definitely, he's got it. It's in his blood, and I'm kind of a new convert, so to speak. But so Vonda, the Tennessee legislature is now trying to put right to work into the state constitution. Tennessee is already a right to work state. That's already the law of the state. And every time I talk about right to work, I like to actually lay out kind of what it is, because there are so many folks that they've got no idea actually what right to work means. They reckon it means at will employment, perhaps, or they reckon it means that that you've got a right to work somewhere, and that's not, it's the most right to work is the most focus group tested catchphrase that you can come up with. And so what it actually does is it allows people to get union representation to work in a firm, work in a shop that is represented by a union, reap the benefits of that union representation, and not contribute to it. And take it and be a freeloader in that workplace, not pay anything for that representation. And so in collective bargaining states, unions can bargain for these things called security clauses that mandate as a condition of employment payment of representation fees, because the union has to provide a service to all employees in the shop, and so so they can bargain for it. It's not even something that is necessary in a union shop. It's just something that a lot of unions bargain for to put in the contract. It being necessary to pay for the representation that the union provides. And I think that's fair, and I think that, that makes a lot of sense. What right to work does, it's the government coming in to this private negotiation between two people, between the workers and the employers, and saying, you can't agree to this. It's the government coming into, it's totally antithetical to any kind of conservative principles at all, because it's the government coming in and telling two private entities what they can and can't agree to. And so the reason for that is it's not a principled allegiance to conservative values. It is a principled allegiance to the destruction of worker power and to the shoring up of corporate power. It is to divide the working class. And, one of the roots of right to work can be found in Jim Crow. That one of the first right to work laws in the country was orchestrated by a person who said, the unions are going to come in and make our white women be in union with these black men, and we can't have that. I mean, that's the origin of right to work. And so they're trying to put that in the state constitution. Vonda, can you? We've got about a minute left here, and then we're going to bring it in on the other side. So, on the other side of this break, I want you to talk about how right to work came into law in Tennessee, and then about the current fight to put it in the state constitution. Because I think, like Alabama, right to work has been law of the land in Tennessee for some time now, but also like Alabama, they want to make it harder to remove. If in a few years Tennessee, the workers in Tennessee come to realize that, oh, this isn't actually good for us, and they want to remove it, it being in the state constitution obviously makes it harder to get rid of. And they did the same thing in Alabama in 2016, I believe. They put it in the state constitution. And so that's what they're trying to do now in Tennessee. I want to let you talk about the genesis of right to work as a law in Tennessee, and then the current fight to put it into the state constitution. So we're going to talk about that some on the other side of the break. So make sure you don't change your dials. Make sure you listen to us. We're going to be talking to Vonda McDaniel, president of the Nashville Central Labor Council, on the other side of this break, about the fight to put right to work in the Constitution, up next.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the Machinist Union's over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at iamaw44.org.
Here in Huntsville, federal employees are an invaluable part of the nation's defense, offering unmatched expertise in engineering and technology and as stewards of taxpayer dollars. What we ask for in return is to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, is a union of working people looking out for each other, making sure that we're treated right. To inquire about joining or to learn more, call 256-876-4880.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
WVNN.
All right, folks, welcome back. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we've got Vonda McDaniel. She is the president of the Nashville Central Labor Council, a member of the Steelworkers Local 1055. So, Vonda, talk to us about right to work in Tennessee. When did it become a law? How did it become a law? What are they trying to do, putting it in the state constitution now?
Well, David, first I want to say that you really framed and set up this conversation in a really way. You gave a lot of the background. But what I want to say about Tennessee is that, like, even before COVID hit, more than 1,800,000 Tennessean households were already one emergency away from financial ruin. And now we find ourselves in a situation where since for the last 80 years, we've had right to work in the Constitution, but it seems, as you said, that they want to double down on the policies that have created so much poverty for working families. And so that's what we are facing. It looks like it will pass and be on the ballot next fall with the governor's race. And so, we're really wanting to talk about it, educate folks about, right to work. It sounds good. Like you said, it is probably some of the best marketing. Mm-hmm. They probably tested it, but the reality of right to work is that it's far more complicated and is really not good for workers.
Right. Right. That's it. Do you know what it was that actually, what was the impetus to put it in the state constitution? Because like you said, it's been law for some time now in Tennessee, but they actually want to go so far as to put it in the Constitution. Do you what was the, was there any event or was it just like, were they just bored and didn't and they couldn't think of anything else to do during this session? They couldn't think of any, there's a pandemic raging, there's people unemployed, there are, people's lost their jobs, small businesses are hurting. They couldn't think of anything else to do with this session. They were so bored, so they decided to put it in the Constitution. Was there any kind of was there any event that happened that made them want to do this right now, or was it just kind of like boredom?
Well, a couple of years ago, the state legislature in Virginia proposed, it failed, but proposed of removing right to work. And Brian Kelsey, who is a senator in our state Senate, if you look at his background and who his supporters are, most of them are check cashing businesses, and FedEx, which is a notoriously anti-union company, are some of his largest contributors. So this is the kind of legislation that, the folks that support him want to see. And so that's why he is moving this bill at this time, probably.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I think, and now that you say that, I think I remember reading some things in the Tennessean, or one of those papers in Tennessee about them seeing that in Virginia and being worried that that one day they could be voted out of office and that it would be as simple as passing a law to get rid of right to work in the state constitution. They wanted to make it more difficult. So what are some other things that working people are facing what are unions doing now to fight this, to fight the push to put right to work in the state constitution?
So the Tennessee AFL-CIO, if you understand the structure of the AFL-CIO, we operate with a national organization in Washington, D.C., and then each one of the states has a state federation. In Tennessee, we have 5 labor councils. Those 5 labor councils have really tried to engage and educate on this issue and begin to mobilize workers to speak up, call their legislatures, write letters, But this is just the beginning of a process of trying to educate the public about, what right to work has meant historically and what it can mean going forward to the future of workers in the state.
Gotcha. And I think that's a good segue into what you were wanting to talk about next, which is the importance of labor councils in the labor movement and how important it is for unions to be active in the labor councils. Can you talk to us some about that?
Oh, absolutely. So, labor councils throughout the country, we have 5 in Tennessee. There are several in Alabama, I believe 4 or 5.
I think there are 7, aren't there, David? I think there are 7. I think there are 7 labor councils in Alabama, aren't there?
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the place where all of the unions in the area get to work outside of their craft, or whether they're industrial unions around just building worker power generally. Mm-hmm. And they work not only with each other, but community organizations. And that's really the path forward for building, a more worker friendly. Most of us are workers. Matter of fact, 99% of us are workers, right? And so really we are the organizations, the hubs of activity for where building worker power should, could, and is happening.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's so important to build up those bonds of solidarity and the connections across industry. We can get so siloed in our own workplaces and in our own local unions, and we kind of forget about the struggles of other folks in other unions and how important we are to one another, and how we're, as workers, like, we're all that we've got. The boss ain't gonna come to our help on any of these issues, and certainly the Chamber of Commerce and organizations like that, they're fighting for exactly the opposite of what is going to help working people. And so it's important to really recognize the struggles that folks in other unions are facing, and try to come to each other's aid. So some of the things that we've done in North Alabama with the reorganization of our labor council, it's been defunct for about 20 years up here in North Alabama. And so we've recently reorganized it within the past year, and we're and already we've held a rally, Labor for Black Lives rally. We have scheduled advocacy meetings with our senators up in D.C. on, all of the unions on behalf of some specific unions. Like, all of us went to lobby on behalf of the postal workers and the stagehands back when the stagehands were all completely out of work and the Postal Service bailout was up for consideration. And we've talked to city councilors about some safety issues that the stagehands have had. And so, it's important, even though I'm not a stagehand, that I look out for the stagehands and vice versa. We're going to talk about that on the other side. Stay tuned.
Huntsville's #1 news, talk, and weather station. WVNN Athens. WVNN FM Trinity. A Cumulus station. It's 10 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. Over 135,000 air travelers passed through TSA checkpoints Friday, the most of any day since the pandemic began. But former White House Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert, an ABC News contributor, says,
I'm seeing in Europe today some really devastating spread of this new variant. So I'm a little worried that we might be a few weeks ahead of ourselves here in the reopenings.
The U.S. is vaccinating people at a faster rate than the European Union. Many areas of the U.S. moving towards reopening. ABC's Alex Stone's in Los Angeles with details.
Many areas of California will on Sunday move from the state's purple tier into the red tier, allowing restaurants to reopen, indoor dining, theme parks, gyms, and museums to reopen, some for the first time in a year. Capacity will be limited. It also means schools can accelerate reopening, says California Health and Human Services Secretary Dr. Mark Galley.
We should see more schools across the state begin either coming back or making the plans to come back.
President Biden and other members of his administration will travel around the country next week to tout the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. At a Rose Garden event Friday, the president said the bill and its $1,400 direct payments to many will bring peace of mind.
Think of the millions of people going to sleep at night staring at the ceiling thinking, my God, What am I going to do tomorrow? Lost my health care, don't have a job. Unemployment runs out. I'm behind on my mortgage. What are we going to do?
A rally's planned for today in Louisville, 1 year to the day since Breonna Taylor was shot and killed as police executed a warrant at her home. Activist Tamika Mallory says,
"We will continue to call her name, and we will continue to stand up for freedom and justice in the city of Louisville."
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo continues to resist calls for his resignation amid allegations of inappropriate conduct. You're listening to ABC News.
It's such a beautiful night. Look at the stars.
They're amazing. Did you know 20% of stars have planets orbiting them capable of sustaining life?
How did you know that? You must spend a ton of time reading.
Not at all. I use Blinkist.
Blinkist?
Yeah, it's an app that takes key insights from over 4,000 nonfiction bestsellers and gathers them into 15-minute blinks for you to read or listen to. With Blinkist, you can learn the main points of an entire book in just 15 minutes, as opposed to days or weeks.
What kind of books?
Nonfiction books in over 27 categories, from personal development to history, management, investing, philosophy, and more. Books like A Beautiful Mind, The 4-Hour Workweek, Freakonomics, and Sapiens. Blinkist makes it easy to learn about pretty much anything.
Like the stars?
Even the stars.
Right now, radio listeners get 25% off, plus 1 free week when you go to Blinkist.com/grow. To get this special offer, go to Blinkist.com/grow. That's BLINKIST.com/
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Depend on it.
Try to act it up. You count the principal J-Rig, act it up. You count the first, try to act it up. You count the principal J-Rig, act it up. You count the
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we've got Vonda McDaniel. She's the president of the Nashville Labor Council, a member of the Steelworkers Local 1055 up there in Tennessee. Vonda, when we left off, I was talking about some of the things that we've done here in North Alabama, some advocacy. And the last thing that I mentioned was that we have talked to city councilors, the whole labor council, on behalf of the stagehands who've been having some safety issues, and those were able to actually get resolved very quickly. I had the person that I talk to most regularly in the stagehands, he texted me a few months after we had that meeting, and he was like, it was almost immediately that after we had that meeting, the safety improved just like overnight. That's kind of and that's what we want to do. Like I said, even though I'm not a stagehand, like, the stagehands they're my sisters and brothers, and I want to make sure that I look out for them, and I know that they're going to have my back if something happens with the federal government. I'm a federal employee, and there's some big issues there. I know that these folks are gonna be here to advocate on my behalf when I'm up against a wall. And the same with the machinists. One of the things that the trade unions are the thing that they really want to try to get out of the labor council is, here in Madison County, there's a lot of new building, and so they want to make sure that they are kind of that they're aware of new projects that are going up, and that the people who are going to be awarding those contracts, the county commissioners, the city councilors, they know that, hey, you've got trade unions in your area that are going to do better work, that are going to be safer, and that are going to be able to provide good paying union jobs to workers in your area. And so there's just so much benefit that you can get out of labor councils. What are some of the things that the Labor Council in Nashville has been doing, some of the projects y'all have up there?
So we have been working on quite a few things in the midst of the pandemic. Of course, our work has changed. One of the most exciting things that we have been working on recently is with non-union workers, believe it or not. Nashville is a city where hospitality is one of the engines that drives the economy. We have a large restaurant and hotel workers, and they have been, organizing. So we have new organizing activity that the Labor Council has been able to support. They've started their own organization called Rock Music City. And actually in two restaurants, they had restaurants, they had wage theft cases that were recently resolved this week where they won over $1 million in stolen wages for workers. So that's one of the pieces. You talked about supporting apprenticeship programs and the crafts. The Central Labor Council works with the building trades, and we do apprenticeship readiness program where we're out in the community talking about apprenticeship programs, recruiting women and Black and brown workers, veterans, to look at opportunities in the trades. In addition to supporting the campaigns and efforts of our union affiliates. So yeah, we're pretty busy both politically and in doing what is exciting new organizing.
Mm-hmm. That's and you mentioned that about the education that goes along with the trades, or trying to educate the community about the opportunities that they've got to join trades, even if they don't have college educations and stuff like that. And that's so important because there are so many people that they literally, like, they don't have any idea. They know what the trades are, but they reckon that they've got to go to some podunk local contractor who ain't going to pay them nothing, who don't have good benefits, that they've got to work in these unsafe conditions, and they don't know that there are trade unions that they can join and have good pay, good benefits, a good retirement, a pension, health care, 100%. The electrical workers here in the area, they've got 100% employer-sponsored health care, no premiums, no deductibles, none of that. Like, that's right. I mean, that's unheard of in any, in other trades, and even in most other union workplaces. But the trade unions, they've got they've got really good benefits packages, and there's just no awareness of that. And I know a fella who is he's doing an apprenticeship program with like I said, some podunk local contractor. He ain't got no benefits, he makes significantly less than he would as an apprentice in the trades. And I told him about it, and he was like, well, I'm already a part of this, and so I don't want to blah 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 blah. It's like, but if he had known about it before he had taken that that apprenticeship, he would have had, he probably would have. And so that's one of the things that we would really like to do, is go into the local schools, on career days and things like that, and really and have an opportunity to talk to the students in high school about, not only do, like, you don't have to go to college to get a good job. You don't have to work for some podunk local contractor. You can have good pay and good benefits and a safe working environment right out of high school. And even if you go to college, you can be in a union workplace after you get out of college. And like me, I'm a quote unquote kind of professional employee, but I've got a union in my workplace. And so do y'all do stuff like that with local schools or anything to educate the folks coming out of high school about the opportunities they've got to go into the trades?
So we do participate in local career fairs. We work with guidance counselors in schools. Many of our trades, the training coordinators do the same. But yeah, any opportunity that we have to talk about what we believe are good paying, family supporting jobs with the best training, which makes them more safe. We take that opportunity and get out in the community as much as possible. We really are trying to raise the visibility of the union movement in our area, which is not just Nashville, but all of the collar counties around Nashville, to make sure that folks know that there's a union movement here that's doing good work.
Right. that's that's so important, and that's what we try to do with the council and with this show, because I mean, there's just such a dearth of information. Like, people just don't know the opportunities that they've got, and so really just getting this information out there, I think, can be so powerful, because there's such a lack of it, and not without reason, of course. The bosses don't want you to know about the power that you can have in a union. That's for sure.
But that's interesting that you say that, Jacob, because where there are union workforces, there are studies that show that they are more stable, highly trained workforces. You don't have the kind of turnover. Right. And so really, if the bosses were not so concerned with making sure that CEO pay was more than worker pay by 794 times, then in many cases, it would be of business value to them. Right. To have a union workforce in place. It's all about greed, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, greed. I mean, greed and power. Those are the two things. Because even if there are some cases like Medicare for all, for example, would be, as far as the bottom line for businesses, that would be a huge boon. It would save businesses tons of money to not have to worry about paying for their employees' health care. But they don't want Medicare for all. And why is that? Because they like the power that them being the ones to give their employees health care. They like the power that gives to them. So when workers go on strike, they not only lose their pay, they lose their health care. If they didn't lose their health care, that would be one less thing that workers would have to bargain for, one less thing that would be keeping workers in unsafe working conditions. And so, not only, like you say, that's exactly right about the greed, about wanting to make sure that CEOs can make 700 times more than the median worker, but they also want to make sure that they've got that power over workers, so that workers don't get too uppity.
We'll get too much power in this economy, for sure.
Right. So, Vonda, as we're coming up on the end of this segment, what are some of the things that you would want folks in the audience that aren't in unions, that aren't in the labor movement? What are some of the things that you would tell folks that are listening now?
Well, this week, with the passage of the American Rescue Plan, that's something that we've spent a lot of time as a labor movement trying to win. And it's not just about additional unemployment while we have folks that are laid off, but it is really about, investing in OSHA, which hasn't been investing in, investing in public health, what hasn't been invested in, investing in pensions, which, some of them have really suffered. COBRA. If anybody has ever lost their job and had to pay COBRA, they know that those rates are astronomical. And now there's 100% subsidy for 6 months for folks to try to bridge this time and transition back into, a working economy. Transportation. There's just so much in this rescue plan for workers. That I think that it's important, because that's some of the hard work that the labor movement has been doing over the last few months. And I think that it's important that workers know exactly what's in the plan and don't listen to all the propaganda about how this is the best plan for workers that I've seen come out of Washington in a long time.
It's certainly a big change from the last administration when we passed tax breaks. You can look at the distribution of who's getting the benefits from this plan versus the Tax Cuts Act. So, Vonda, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. You can find her on Twitter at Union Women, and you can follow the Nashville CLC on Twitter and Facebook as well. Vonda, thanks again for talking to us. We'll be right back. This is the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years. providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. If you're looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334. That's 256-383-3334, or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
Stay informed and entertained all day long, only on WVNN.
Put it there, boy, and we'll show these fascists what a couple of hillbillies can do.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. If you would like to give us a call, the phone number is 1-866-494-9866. We got a tweet from David, said... So silly. David said, right to work keeps oppressive unions from mandating its terms onto the entire workforce. Unions don't care about the workers, the customer, the product, the company, or the stockholders. They only care about enriching themselves and increasing their own power. I mean, this is just like it's silly, right? It's silly because so there are a couple things to know about right to work, that and the fact that and the people who are pushing it. The people who are pushing it constantly rail on freeloaders, specifically with regards to undocumented immigrants. They hate people who they ostensibly hate when people take advantage of benefits that they did not pay into. When you are in a right-to-work environment and you are represented by a union and you do not pay dues, you take advantage of the representation that a union brings you. And the representation that unions bring you is just objectively, it makes your we can see, like, we can look at the data. You know, one of the things that folks like to say is facts don't care about your feelings. Okay, well, let's look at the facts. We can see that union workers make more. They have higher wages, something on the order of 14 to 25% higher wages. We can see that they have better benefits. They pay less for more health care. They have better retirements. Union workers are basically the only ones in this country that still have pensions. Where we don't have pensions, we still have better retirement plans. Unions create safer work environments. Union workplaces have something on the order of 80% fewer fatalities. Union nursing homes during the pandemic had a 40% lower patient mortality rate than non-union nursing homes. And, you know, this fellow's telling us that unions don't care about the customers. The patients in these nursing homes are the customers, and they die 40% less, you know, in union nursing homes. And the reason for that is because when these caretakers are able to have a voice on the job, they don't get, you know, you don't go into nursing home work to get rich, right? You care about the people that you care about the work. And so when workers like nurses, like people in nursing homes, have the capability to speak for themselves, to have a voice on the job, they create safer working environments. And same with teachers. For teachers, their working environment is the students' learning environment. And so what are the things that teachers fight for? Much more often than not, along with raises, which they absolutely deserve, and everybody can agree that teachers do not make enough in this country, even harder than they fight for raises, they fight for smaller classroom sizes. They fight for more equipment in the classroom. They fight for nurses in schools. They fight for counselors in the schools because they care about their communities. They care about their students. And they it's just absurd on its face to believe that unions don't care about the communities and the patients and the customers. And you know, unions, to say that unions don't care about the company, obviously there's some amount of tension there, which is right and good, because when executives, the profit is literally money that we workers create that we don't get. Okay, so what the executives make in profit is just wages that we don't get, wages that they take from us. But of course, if you don't have a company, then you don't have you don't have a job. Workers go out of their way. Like this I really have so little patience for this nonsense narrative of workers and unions being greedy, because we can look at the 2008 financial crisis, and what did the workers give up that worked for the big three in the UAW, that worked for Ford and GM and Chevrolet? They gave up wages, they gave up benefits, they gave up health care to save the company. And on top of what the workers sacrificed, us as an American people paid for a bailout for these companies. And what did the executives sacrifice? Nothing. The executives didn't sacrifice a damn thing. They took bonuses after they received their bailouts. So I have no patience for this nonsense narrative about workers and unions being greedy, when the same executives at the same time, workers and their countrymen, are sacrificing to keep the companies afloat. They're taking bonuses, and it's like, get a grip, okay? I mean, like, it's absurd. And so, you know, the idea that right to work is the idea that right to work is just about unions wanting to build their power for its own sake. Of course we want to build our power, but why do we want to build our power? Because we want better lives for our members, for ourselves, and for our communities. Right to work is just something to divide the working class. Right to work is just something to destroy worker power and shore up corporate power. It is the government. And the other thing is that, folks that advocate right to work say that they hate freeloading, of course, unless it's workers freeloading off of non-members freeloading off of union representation. They also say that they hate government intervention in the free market. They hate government intervention in contracts. They hate government intervention in working conditions. There are a myriad of conditions that you agree to have a job. There is all sorts of conditions of employment that workplaces require. They require you to have degrees. They require you to have a uniform. They require you to have transportation. They require you to look a certain way. They require you to talk a certain way. All sorts of things that conservative free market types have no problem with. When workers get enough power in a workplace to mandate one thing as a condition of employment that employers and employees freely agree to, that one thing being you have to pay for the representation that a union provides, and thus this condition of employment being a condition that increases worker power, that is the only condition of employment that conservatives and Republicans have a problem with. Ask yourself why that is. Why is it that literally the only condition of employment that these free market fundamentalists have a problem with is the one condition of employment in America that we have that shores up worker power? Okay? And once you ask yourself why that is, and you answer honestly, the answer is that they don't actually have a principled commitment to free markets. They don't actually have a principled commitment to the freedom of private entities to agree to contracts. The reason is that they want to destroy worker power. They don't want us to get uppity. They don't want us to believe that we deserve better lives. They want us to be quiet and docile, and they want us to accept what we're given and to just accept it, and to be meek little servants that will do whatever they say without putting up a fight. That's what they want. Okay, so that's all I've got to say on that.
Goodness.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the reasons that passing the PRO Act is so important is that it would nullify state right to work clause. That's one of the reasons that the PRO Act is so good, so important. Switching gears really might get a little bit of whiplash, but I wanted to talk about some personal stuff. I wanted to ask David a few questions, or just one question, and it's not super personal, but and we may not have enough time for him to get to it on this side of the break, and so I'll ask the question, and then he'll answer it on the other side of the break. There are a lot of folks in churches that are Christians that will tell you that, I grew up Christian, but it really wasn't a big part of my life. It really, I was just like, I went to church on Sundays and I didn't really think about it much throughout the week. And then they'll tell you about this kind of conversion experience that they had. And that after that, they really put the church kind of in the center of their life, and they really dedicated their life to that kind of work. And David had a kind of similar experience with the labor movement. He like we've said multiple times, he's a third or fourth generation union member. Everybody in his family has worked union. When he first got old enough to start working, his parents were like, you got to get yourself a union job. And but he didn't really think a whole lot about it. He worked in union workplaces. He paid dues, and he did, he was a union member, but that was kind of the extent of it. And then there was one experience that he had that really kind of transformed his orientation to the labor movement, and that after that he really started to put a lot of his energy into fighting for his sisters and brothers on the job, and that really kind of reoriented his vision of himself and his vision of the labor movement. So I want him to tell that story because it's a really great story, and I don't think we've talked about it on air, not here. So we'll talk about that on the other side. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. News starts now.
The vaccination effort charging forward a new record pace. More than 1 million doses administered. 2.2 million doses administered per day nationwide. In Massachusetts, teachers rolling up their sleeves, thankful.
Felt like I hit the lottery. I feel very emotional because this is a big day.
New York Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand adding their voices to the growing calls for Governor Andrew Cuomo to step down amid sexual harassment allegations from former staff. The family of George Floyd Friday reaching a landmark $27 million settlement from the city of Minneapolis. In orbit above us, NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover Jr. conducting a spacewalk, making updates to the International Space Station. The city of Minneapolis approving a landmark $27 million settlement with the family of George Floyd, even as jury selection continues and the officer charged in Floyd's death. And late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg honored in her native Brooklyn with a bronze statue in her likeness. Dave Packer, ABC News.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air.
The Dale Jackson Show, a safe space for terrible people. Weekdays, 7 to 11 a.m., only on WVNN. WVNN.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We were talking about on the other side of the break. I kind of set the stage for David to give us his come to Jesus moment, so to speak. So I wanted you to talk about that because I think we had talked about that maybe in an interview with Dixieland of the Proletariat, or I can't remember, but I've heard you talk about it before, and I don't think we've talked about it on the air. So I wanted you to talk about that strike that you saw.
So, yeah, I didn't see the strike. The strike occurred about a year before I had came to work. But, I mean, the crux of it was the union members before I came to work, had went out on strike for retiree health care. And basically retiree health care is if you retire earlier, then you're able to get Social Security benefits and medical benefits. Then you can continue carrying your health insurance up, and it bridges that gap. And so, yeah, they went on strike and struck for 93 days for people that they didn't know. So
right.
Whenever I come to work there and had learned what they had done for me, then I decided it was time to get involved and fight for the next generation and for them as well.
Right. And one of the things that really that stuck out to me the first time that I heard that is that they were fighting for retiree health care, these folks who were nearing retirement. But it wasn't their retiree health care that was...
They were grandfathered in.
Yeah, they were grandfathered in. They were fighting so that folks coming up... So what was it that the company had tried to put in the contract, like specifically, that they were... like what was the division there?
I mean, specifically, anybody that was hired after the contract was signed didn't get retiree health care. I mean, it just...
Right.
It was done.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that's one of the things that a lot of times employers will try to do to divide up their own workforce, because if they can tell, so that would mean that anybody coming in after that contract was signed wouldn't get the retiree health care. But that also means that everybody that was there before the contract got signed got it. So like everybody that went on strike, they were already guaranteed retiree health care, but they went out on strike. They forego their paychecks for 3 months so that folks they didn't even know, folks that weren't even hired, folks that hadn't even been born yet, that are going to be coming in later, 20 years hopefully working at the company, so that those folks that they never met can have retiree health care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful, fighting for folks. That's what, are you willing to fight for somebody you don't know? Like these folks, like they not only said the words, they did it in the most kind of powerful, personal way that you can.
Yeah. It was, from the ones that I've talked to, it was miserable.
Yeah.
90 days and at the middle of Christmas in the cold in the winter. With burn barrels and wood, and we wound up losing the retiree health care. But they put up as good a fight as they could. So
right.
That's all you can ask for.
Right. Yeah. That dedication to folks that that you don't even know. That's one of the beautiful things about the labor movement, and we call each other brother and sister, and it's not like from that show of solidarity there you can tell that it's not just words. Like folks in the labor movement are really willing to put up a fight for one another and for folks coming in after, and that's that's. It's such a beautiful thing that that you just don't see often.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. It's that's just the nature of the beast. It's what we do, and we'll move on. And we got another contract coming up in a year and in a year and 2 months, and I'm sure we'll be fighting for somebody else because. Unfortunately, this is what businesses do. They do their best to take away as much as they can take away until, you're starving and you ain't got nowhere else to go, and they've got you captured. That's the whole system in and of itself, is to keep people so oppressed that they hadn't got any other choice but to continue slaving for the modern day slave owners.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Folks, if you want to give us a call, 1-866-494-9866, or you could, tweet us, Facebook us. You can tweet us at Labor Reporters. You can find us on Facebook at the Valley Labor Report. You can comment in the YouTube chat if you've got a question or anything like that. But yeah, I think that kind of personal, those personal stories, I really like to bring those out, and I've I talked to a bunch of folks in the labor movement down in Birmingham, and you can find those interviews. They're all up now separately, talking with iron workers and electrical workers and folks like that about what the union has done for them. And I just love stories like that. Like it's so. I said something earlier about like facts don't care about your feelings, and kind of gave out like some data about how unions help, and that data is all fine and good, but really hearing those personal stories is really great too. Like I love to hear stuff like that. I love to hear what the I came out of a church tradition that really valued testimony. And I think that hearing those personal testimonies about what workers have done for one another is just as powerful as any graph or any bit of data that you could throw at somebody. I think in a lot of ways it's more powerful because it's a whole lot more raw, a whole lot more real in ways that numbers on a spreadsheet really never can be.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we got a good brother that we won't mention, but he lost his wife, last night. Yeah. So everybody keep him in your thoughts and prayers. If you're friends of the show, then you probably know who we're talking about. But regardless, the labor movement is more than just about right to work or benefits. It's a brother and sisterhood. And we look out for each other, on the job and off the job. So that's something to keep in your thoughts and prayers there. This brother's going to be struggling for probably quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine. That's so tough, but definitely, yeah, especially, I'm sure a lot of folks know who we're talking about. So definitely keep him and his family in your prayers, because that is such a, have a sudden death like that. No death is easy to cope with, but certainly it's all the more difficult if it wasn't expected, and this was not expected at all. It's just terrible, So, we love him, and, we wish him all the comfort that you can have in a time like this. We got a question, on YouTube. If you want, you can give us a call. 1-866-494-9866 is the number. If you want to give us a call, you can tweet us at Labor Reporters. The question was, would right to work be upheld if amended into a state's constitution before the PRO Act? Could that be why Tennessee is trying to do this? I don't think so. I think, federal laws override state constitutions or state laws, anything like that.
I'm actually surprised that somebody hasn't challenged it. Anyways, I'm surprised that a state Fed or the national Fed has not taken to court one of these states that has passed this, because it seems to me that this is skirting the Constitution, as far as First Amendment rights, free speech rights, freedom of assembly rights. I don't understand how the state can force a entity to provide services for someone and that person be able to steal those services for free. Because in effect, that's what right to work does, is force a union to provide services for someone that refuses to pay for it. And I can't understand how this has been allowed to continue. I mean, it flies in the face of everything that we believe in America, that you can't force somebody. Look at the cake people. They took that to court and won it because the guy didn't want to provide a service for a gay couple. And the U.S. Supreme Court upheld that. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't think it was right, but I just don't understand how these states can force you to provide a service and the person can say, well, I'm not going to pay for it. It's like going to a lawyer and saying, hey, I want you to represent me in a case, and then just saying, but I'm not going to pay you for it. Just understand that.
Right.
And that's insanity to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It really doesn't make sense. But yeah, no, I don't. Now, David was saying, he doesn't understand how right to work hasn't been challenged or challenged more often. On the other side of that, the PRO Act will definitely be challenged. And that's a big worry of mine with the, radical, anti-worker judiciary, federal judiciary, and Supreme Court that we have now. Could the PRO Act be overturned if it's passed? And I think the answer to that is, I think it definitely could, and that's a big worry. So it's all the more important to support it and support it publicly, and because one of the Supreme Court, for all its flaws, it can be kind of responsive to public pressure, and we saw that with Obergefell and things like that.
So Jarrett said, they would probably bring up the public defendant, talking about, forcing a union to provide services for free. And the public defendant is probably an easy one to pick out, but it's not correct, because the public defendant services are actually paid. They're paid for by the local municipality or the state.
Not paid enough. But,
no, but I mean,
they're
regardless, they're not asked to do something for absolutely nothing. They are. So, yeah, I mean, if so I would make that recommendation. If the state wants to pass right-to-work laws, then the state should chip in for the representation that we're providing for free.
Right.
That, so yeah, that sounds, it's a quick go-to, but it falls on its face under further inspection.
Yeah. Jared also asked, and I don't really have I don't really have just a whole lot to say about this. He asked how and why so many towns across the U.S. are named Uniontown. And some good labor songs and union art traditions. I have more to say on the labor songs, but David, do you have any idea about the history of so many places being called Uniontown or some variation thereof across the states?
No clue. Where is it?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not around here, that's for certain. But I don't know of a Uniontown in Alabama, so I would assume it's probably farther north where there's a little bit stronger.
No,
is there a Uniontown in Alabama?
There's some variation of. I remember driving through a Union something or another, in Alabama.
I know there's a Union City or something.
There's a
like
Union
that.
Grove, Union Springs, but I don't know if that's really the same. But there's Union City in Tennessee.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't really know much about that. So we're going to answer the stuff about the labor songs and union art traditions on the other side of the break. If you want to give us a call, 1-866-494-9866 is the number. We will be right back. This is the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, believes all workers are entitled to fairness, dignity, and respect. AFGE also knows that the best way to guarantee proper treatment is for workers to stand together, united, looking out for each other. In AFGE, we fight for workers every day to ensure a workplace that is safe and free from harassment. If you're a federal employee and want to be a part of this union, to protect yourself and your fellow workers, call 256-876-4880. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
WVNN. Depend on it.
Let's go! Hey! Walking through a wasteland, I'm looking Poison up structures and distant victories. Dead streets of abandoned mothers and crack babies.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We were played in by David's international superstar.
No, that's not him.
That wasn't him? That wasn't Cancer Slug?
No, that was not Cancer Slug. That
Really?
was, hang on a second, I'll tell you.
Oh.
Even though that was an excellent band and it was a local band.
Yeah, even though that was an excellent band and a local band, it was not Cancer Slug. I sure thought that was Cancer Slug.
That was Random Conflict.
Random Conflict.
They're out of, they're originated from Huntsville, but like Lee Baines, they've moved up to, I believe, Nashville to try to get a little bit more.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I was glad that we talked a little bit longer because that's an excellent song and that's an excellent album if you like kind of postmodern blend of metal and punk. They are the go-to group. They're awesome.
Gotcha.
And they're very far leftist as
There
well.
you go.
So they support a good cause.
There you go.
And they let us play our music on the show for free. I mean, they, you know, it's hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard to find.
Yep. So, you know, we got Joe Marshall, retired steelworker, called in, told me that he agreed with my response to David on Twitter, I can't remember exactly, but the tweet about oppressive unions. So I appreciate that, Joe. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in. And the other question that we got from Jared was the bit about labor songs and union art. So labor songs, I love the IWW's Little Red Songbook, Songs to Fan the Flames of Discontent. You can get a facsimile reprint of the 1923 edition of the songbook from PM Press, I believe. It's really cool. I like it a lot. It's like pocket-sized. Anytime I go to a picket line, I carry it with me in my back pocket just in case I see somebody there with a guitar that can string together a few chords, or sometimes I'll bring somebody with a guitar. You know, so those songs were, most of them were like gospel hymns that were really popular back in the day. And they used the tunes of those to write like pro-union words, and it was really, really cool. So I love I love that songbook, and so there's a lot of good songs there. Utah Phillips is a really good one. He does he did a lot of stuff kind of like that.
Joe Hill.
Joe Hill. Joe Hill's the one that wrote a lot of the songs in the Little Red Songbook.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a ton. Bruce Springsteen. Dropkick Murphys.
Lee Baines,
one of my favorites.
Lee Baines' song,
Union Man.
Company Man. Yeah,
excellent song.
It is such a good song. I love Company Man. I highly recommend buying all of Lee Baines' records. It's not sponsored.
Neil Young.
Yeah, Neil Young.
I mean, God, the list goes on and on and on, and it just it speaks to the solidarity. Tom Morello,
yeah.
You know.
He just did a song on Twitter for the workers down in Bessemer, so that was cool.
Yeah, and then so what? Look at the history. Look at our history. Songs have been used for years and years and years on picket lines in slave fields. Freaking Class Huggle got me looking up sea shanties last night. It's just, it builds solidarity. I'm not a big singer of songs, but it definitely builds solidarity amongst all the workers. So
yeah, I like the reason that I like hymns and stuff like that is because it's so easy to sing and everybody can sing it, and that kind of active singing together really does, like, I mean, studies have shown that it really actually builds like bonds, and relationships, and it actually does help that. And that's one thing that I think that we've lost a lot. And you know, if you read Hammer and Hoe, we had a conversation with Dr. Robin Kelly, author of Hammer and Hoe, who wrote about you know, some black radical traditions in Alabama. And one of the things that he wrote about and that he talked about in our interview was that there were people in the Union that were also part of that were also part of a traveling gospel quartets, and as part of their performance, they would also talk about the Union and like God's work in the labor movement and things like that. And it would be, you know, they would be evangelizing for the church and evangelizing for the labor movement and for worker power and things like that at the same time.
That's been lost over the years.
And they would start union meetings singing union hymns, and they would, you know, I mean, like, man, we should do that again. Every union meeting we should start with like, there's power in union or solidarity forever or something like that.
Yeah, well, and every church should as well. You know, that's something that the church used to be a foundation for the working oppressed, and they've really moved away from that quite a lot. And you know, at one time, you know, a lot of the labor leaders came out of the church. You can go back to the Knights of Labor, you know, was kind of it was formed out of some of the Catholic churches and things like that. If you go back, I can't remember the book that I was reading a couple of years ago, but it was excellent. And it spoke about the church standing with the oppressed. And that's always been the key takeaway from the beginning of time, from Jesus Christ's walk on earth, was standing with the oppressed, and we've moved so far away from that.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of liberation theology stuff, and one of these days I'm going to get a liberation theologian on the show who's kind of particularly into the labor stuff, but it's totally a different side of the Bible and the scriptures than what I saw growing up. You know, one of the things that I read was that in the Old Testament there's the command to love God and love your neighbor as yourself, and that's in the Old Testament 2 or 3 or 4 times or something like that.
And in the New Testament.
And then, in the Old Testament, 37 times is a command to love the oppressed, love the poor, love the sick, the widow, and things like that.
Well,
and
here's the thing. Your neighbor is the oppressed.
Yeah.
I promise you, unless you live, you know, in, I don't know, I don't live in one of these spots, so I can't think of one of the, you know, I don't drive through. But, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
the point is, everyone around us is oppressed in some fashion. All of the workers, we're all struggling. The statistics bear it out. Most people don't have $500 in their savings account, and it's not because we're all going out and eating avocado toast, you know, and drinking lattes. It's because people are working 7 days a week and they just don't have the money.
Yeah,
they don't.
Yep. Folks, this has been the Valley Labor Report, and we will see you next week. And make sure that you're following us online. We've been doing midweek shows. Last week, we talked to a policy analyst with Alabama Arise about the new anti-riot legislation. I'd highly recommend checking that out. See you.